Eagles Entertainment.
Eagle Eye in the Sky is fueled by Gatorade, the official sports drink of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Anything that moves, I don't care who it is. Let's go. Give me everything you got. Play fast, play hard. Let's beat these boys tonight in their house. It's party time. It's party time. There we go. Touchdown!
You're listening to the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. Now here's your host, Fran Duffy.
That's right of the week, and we are talking about Madden as the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade, continues. I'm Fran Duffy, and as always, I think we've got a great show for you here on episode number 252. At the top of this week's show, we've got Chalk Talk, where I chat with a guy who I actually met for the first time just over a year ago, summer of 2019. His name is Dustin Smith. He's the head ratings adjuster for the EA Sports Madden franchise. He and his team are responsible for handing out all of the player grades and all of the ratings for every player in the game. Now, last year, you guys may remember my conversation with Anthony White last summer, who's responsible for what all the playbooks look like in this game. Well, this year, we're talking a little bit more about player traits. This is a really fun conversation, whether you enjoy playing the Madden video game or not. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into our chat now in Chalk Talk.
Let's get down to business. It's time for Chalk Talk.
Well, really excited to welcome in Dustin Smith to talk through really the whole Madden ratings process. This is Dustin Smith, who is the EA Sports head ratings adjuster. Dustin, man, really appreciate you jumping on here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade. Excited for this discussion because it really kind of peeled the curtain back on your whole process.
Hey, man, I'm happy to be here. I know not a lot of Eagles fans are fans of me, so you take every opportunity you get, to try and build a better relationship with fan bases that may or may not like you. So,
how many fan bases can you actually say that are like, oh yeah, I know I'm on the good side of this group?
I don't think there's any because I hear this all the time. I always hear, you have Cowboy bias or this bias, or some people that blame me as being a Buccaneers fan or Texans fan or this fan or whatever, and I'm like, okay, interesting. And then everybody loves to just say the Cowboys are overrated. Honestly, they've always been good at pulling in talent and not ever doing enough with it, right? It's a consistent theme. We've all seen it. It's all come to fruition. And oddly enough, and then you'll get Cowboy fans that go, you must hate the Cowboys. You must be a Patriots fan or anything. I'm like, okay. I mean, I guess if that's where we're at, I guess maybe, I don't know. You think I'm out for everybody's team, apparently. Nobody's ever completely satisfied. Usually if I get a nice compliment, it's always just like, I'm okay with the ratings this year. Like, that's the nicest thing you get. Not like, hey, you nailed that dude spot on. Like, it's super rare you see anything like that.
Well, that's the thing is, like, with your job, you have to make not just all the fan bases happy, but you've got to make every NFL player happy. It's impossible. Impossible feat, right?
Impossible. And I'm not going to throw him under the bus or anything, but I just had a player ask me, like, what he was going to be rated this year last night. I'm like, let me ask you, what do you think you're going to be rated? And he had a guess. And it seems like, especially for younger guys, like the bar is always like 80. That's like if I had a good season, like 80 is where I always, in fairness, like the way our rating scale used to be, that about lines up. 80's perfect, right? Like that means you're a good player, this, that. And ever since we stretched it about 2 years ago, a 77, 76 is about what an 80 used to be. So I told him, I guess you're going to be upset with me because you're not an 80. And he really, he wasn't loving that. But I said, you're going, and again, I'm going to try not to label him out here, but I said, you're going into year 2. That's always the year that guys tend to move the most. Second year always shows out the most. So, it's like, I always go back to this line. If you ball, you get the call from Deion Sanders. If you ball, you immediately go up in our game.
All right, well, let's start from the beginning here. I just want to know, how the hell did you get here? Take us through your background and how you got this job with EA Sports.
This is one of the weirder lines I've had as far as story time goes. You had Madden 10 about to come out, and I was complaining about like Madden 09 and Madden 10 and some of the features about like, this is some of the things I think they could be doing better. This is where I was, and I'm sure I wasn't even always the nicest in some of my feedback, but I had gotten better about it, I think, by the time that was coming out. And I got an invite from one of the developers to go and come down to a community day. So at the community day, you get to go and see the game about 4 months before it's finished. You go, you play it, you give all your feedback, you explain this and that. Hey, hopefully you guys care about this. These are some features I'd like to see. This is some fixes I'd like to see, yada, yada, yada. And while I was there, I was like, man, I'd really love to work on this game, but I don't have a background in it. So I talked to the producer at the time, and I was like, what would I do? Well, a lot of our guys started in QA and then worked their way up. So I took a QA job, moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, breathed in that wet air every day for 5 years, and worked my way up. It took a while, but I worked my way up, and then got moved to a producer role down in Florida in 2015. And then I worked through that. And mostly I was doing like equipment, uniforms, a lot of stuff like that. Authenticity producer, which is technically still the same role. And when their previous guy left, they gave me an opportunity to fill in. They knew that I already knew the database. I knew a ton about the players in the first place. They asked if that'd be something I'm interested in. I was like, I never really planned on, like, that was never like what I was shooting for. But as soon as the opportunity arose, I was like, I'd absolutely love to do this. I would never say no to that. Like, it's one of the coolest roles there is. It's like a one-off type deal. I'm one of those people that also I like working in the team atmosphere, but I also hate being bothered. In a corporate structure, there's meetings, there's emails, there's this. You get inundated with a bunch of outside interference, and in a role that is so nuanced and tight down, and you have to have all this stuff done by a certain time. Like, you don't have a lot of time to deal with being interrupted by all sorts of different things, right? That'll come up through the dev cycle. So that one for me was like, I would definitely love being in a role like this where I can just kind of go at it and hammer at it without being bothered, every 2 hours or whatever.
That's awesome. So you really kind of worked yourself into that role. And like you said, just such a unique title and a unique set of job responsibilities. Take us through what's like, and I know it changes throughout the cycle, but what is a look into the life, on a day-to-day basis, for you? Like, well, what does life look like as the EA Madden's ratings adjuster?
So I guess it depends on the time of year.
Yeah.
So there's rookie creation time of year. There's this time of year where the ratings reveal comes out, where you get everybody just on fire. Everybody just loses their mind about this is too high, this is too low, this is that, right? And then you have the during the season mode where you're doing more of your adjusting and, hey, Josh Jacobs is going off this year. You get that trucking up, because rookies always start way lower. So it depends on what time of year, but like my favorite time of year was what we just finished, right? So my day-to-day will be, okay, I'm working on rookies. I grab a whole position group at a time. So I was doing wide receivers, right? You'll grab them all, move them all into free agency because they haven't been drafted yet at this point, so that you can stack rank them and compare them against everybody that's currently in the league at wide receiver. So the whole idea is you see them versus who are about to be their peers, and I'll look at it. So I'll have two separate tabs. I'll have one where I can see them against the whole league, and then one where I can see them completely just against each other. Okay. So you stack rank them in their own class and then stack rank that across the whole league. And essentially, I'll spend my time combing through all of the data that comes out, which unfortunately there was not a lot of pro days this year, which really slowed down the process. You grab all the combine time, and then I'll pull up on my second monitor here. I'll watch all my film on each player as I go, because I'll just do one player at a time. Grab that, compare it to all of the data, go rating by rating by rating, finished. Next player, rating by rating by rating by rating by rating, finished. So it sounds tedious and maybe monotonous to some, but like it's really one of the funnest things in the world, because you spend a lot of time getting to know this one player, and then boom, on to the next, boom, on to the next, on to the next. So you get to know them, but in maybe a 1 to 2 hour window.
So I've got like a million questions just off the rookie integration piece. So so I get it right. You'll watch all the film on guys. You'll put all the data in. You'll go through rating by rating, trait by trait. Do you talk to anybody in the league from an evaluation standpoint? Are there media types that you kind of consult to kind of talk through, or is it solely like, all right, this is how Dustin Smith sees it, and I'm going to go trait by trait, rating by rating on these guys.
I love information. So there's no way I would go into it just thinking what I learn and find out is just enough. So I love reading Lance Zierlein's draft reports, scouting reports. Dan Brugler's a favorite. I'll talk to some coaches because we go to the combine every year. I'll talk to some coaches about certain guys or this and that. I go to the Senior Bowl, talk to Jim Nagy about a few things here and there. I ran into him at the combine. We actually spoke specifically, funny enough, about Jalen Reagor's 40. There's just all sorts of things. You try and grab as much data as possible. PFF has some good stuff. As long as you read it in context, I think this is the most important part there. We grab as much information as we can from as many sources as possible. Another shout out, Draft Network. That's another favorite of mine.
Sure. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in as much information as possible. Just makes everything better as well. So just hearing like all the different things you're going to pull in to come into the game, I think that's awesome. Take us through now when you're trying to adjust a guy's rating. Okay, so we're talking like NFL vets. How hard is it to know when to pull the trigger on a guy and say like, all right, this guy is going to go way up or fall way down? And we're talking, I guess, like mid-season now, like as you're adjusting ratings. How hard is it to know, like, all right, we're gonna make the move and boost this guy up?
So for me, it's all about consistency. Essentially, what our ratings are is a consistency number. Like George Kittle, Josh Jacobs, like guys that were staying at a high level week over week over week, steadily will see a increase. Like you may not get an increase 1 week, but if they do that at that same level 3 weeks in a row, you might see a 5-point jump or 4.6 points, somewhere in there, versus maybe a 1 or 2 point jump. Because like on a week to week basis, some guy may have a good game and we'll give them a little boost for that. But if they're not really known for steady doing something like that, they kind of stay around that mid-tier range, right? You have to stay at the top of your game to kind of continuously see those large upgrades. I want to say some of our, like the Mahomes year, right? Like,
right.
I think he jumped 2, then he jumped 1, then he jumped 1, then he jumped 3. And then like by, week 8, he finally, then you're really jumping. Then you start getting into the top tier. Then you start talking about MVP conversation, and it just keeps going and going and going. Like when you're on a roll and that consistent, you'll really see big jumps.
So you took us through different phases of the offseason. What does the week look like for you in season?
The week for me in season. So this is one people never fully grasp. So Monday night, I'll watch the game. Thursday night, we'll watch the game. I'll watch a ton of college football on Saturday. And then I have a specific place here locally that I love to go to that has 8 TVs with the immediate site. So I'll watch as many 1 p.m. games Eastern time as I can, and all of the 4 p.m. games, and then the Sunday night game. So I'm seeing almost every game because usually there's just not enough TVs to catch all of the 1 p.m. games, unfortunately. Sure. Sometimes like 10 or 11 on. So I'll tend to catch like 7 or 8 of those. But for the most part, if I missed like a really big game, I'll go back and catch it on Game Pass or something. And then that next Monday comes, you've got to condense all down everything you saw, and we go game by game, find out who's going to get lowered, who's going to get raised, who's going to get lowered, who's going to get raised. We'll have our ratings adjuster meeting. We'll talk through all the things that we want to do. Guys that are on watch list that maybe like we think might have a chance coming up to 99s. Watch list for other games that we're planning on going to. Like, hey, let's keep an eye on this dude. He's going to, he has a good chance to go off this game. He might get a big boost. It gives us a chance to elevate it, talk about it. All sorts of things like that. And you've got like a 3-day window to really turn around watching all of that football from the previous week. And then that Monday night game that night. And you've got to encapsulate it all into a very quick window, turn it around, make sure that everything's good, and then put out that update that week and then hear everybody tell you that you did it wrong.
So how many people are on your team? You mentioned there's like a group of you guys that are ratings adjusters. How many guys do you work with on a daily basis?
I want to say we're sitting at 9 or 10 right now.
Okay.
There's Clint, Barry. We did a little thing on ESPN that kind of shows most of them off. You can kind of see everybody. Everybody kind of has their own window to the world that they kind of see the game or NFL and all that through, where you can kind of you're trying to have a good balance of the way everybody's seeing the game. That way you're hearing it from all perspectives, whether it be a casual or hardcore fan or a hardcore fan of this certain area or, whatever it may be. So you try and take all those voices, listen to it, adjust, based on maybe potential feedback there. Like, hey man, AJ Brown's been going off, but I know you got him sitting at a 78 or whatever, maybe let's go back and look at that one, see what's going on. And then, for example, actually that one came up last year and I was like, he's really good at everything. For some reason, the overall formula is just not loving him as much as it should. Let's do a deeper dive and see what it can take to raise him up. Because we were happy with the season he was having. We felt like he should be higher. So you got to get in there, make sure that his player type, because a player type is different per overall. There's like 4 different player types in a wide receiver, for example, physical, deep threat, all that, right? So you've got to make sure that his player type, all of the ratings he needs to go up in that player type, are what he's displaying on the field. So let's say he was a route runner, right? Okay, well, I'm happy with where his route running ratings are. Let's see if there's some other ratings that I can get that he's been good at and raise him there to get his overall to go up.
So like I remember playing the game as a kid and, being able to adjust ratings and stuff like that, through the game. And when it would come to a situation like that, I'd be like, all right, well, I'm just going to boost his awareness up. Let's go boost the awareness up and I'll boost up.
Player, right?
Because the physical tools are all there. I'm just going to boost the awareness up or I'm going to push it down and that'll get his overall rating up. Let me ask you this question. This is actually something that I've really been thinking about for a while when it comes to the game. And some of the guys I'm sure that have been there for a while may be able to have probably told you stories about like this kind of thing. I'm interested to kind of get your take on it. When it comes to player performance at a specific position in a specific scheme. So if it's like, I'm thinking back to when I was a kid and it was like running backs that play in a Mike Shanahan offense or, quarterbacks for Andy Reid, whatever it is, like if there are certain position groups that just seem to do well in a certain scheme, do you guys even like try to tackle that? Or is it just like, hey, like this is how the guy produces. We're going to let the production and what he does on the field kind of speak for itself when it comes for his rating?
So we try and do something like that.
Okay.
It's not perfect, but like if you get a guy, the Shanahan runoff is probably a good one, right? A guy that is coming from an outside zone offense, going into his system. More often than not, like when a guy changes teams or something, we like to say new team, new scheme in office, which means you're going to go down a little bit in awareness and play until you get used to, that system. Unless maybe it's a system like that you had already played in before or that you already know like to a T, maybe the terminator, whatever. So we try and like, for example, like an outside zone, you're probably going to raise the ball carrier vision to try and like across the board on that team to some level because they're all going to produce in it. Like, there's something to be said about that, and it shows up. We don't have a perfect way to encapsulate it. I kind of wish we did, but it's one of those things that if you nail it close enough, and like and if our run blocking is higher in the finesse for everybody on that offensive line, which means you're going to get out and zone block better, it should come to fruition in the game. But it may not necessarily show perfectly in those overalls, like. And everybody just loves to kind of look at the overall as the true, this is just what the player is. And I've kind of tried to train people to get away from that over the last few years. Just because an overall may be a 77 or whatever, that doesn't necessarily indicate how good or bad you're going to be with him. Because it's all important about how you play within the scheme, how that player fits your style of play. Because that's really what's going to determine the best use you get out of him, right? So you may have a guy that has like an 85 trucking, maybe an 85 speed, 84 speed, so he's not all that fast. Maybe a Benny Snell might be a good example here. Okay. But your style of offense is to get to a spot, wait for a hole to open, burst. You're not going to get very far, but then you expect to break a tackle or two, truck a dude, and that's your offense. That's how you like to run your offense. Well, then Benny Snell's going to fit perfect for you at a 76, 78, whatever overall, so that you can get an idea of like, I don't need to go, let's say I'm in franchise mode. I don't need to go invest in some or trade for sign any expensive 90 overall back because I can go do all this damage with a guy that I know maybe just has some low awareness, but he works fine in my scheme, right? I can make good use of them.
It's no different than how coaches and front offices are trying to work. And I go back to like when I was a kid and I would play and I would go franchise mode. I would draft Seneca Wallace every single draft in franchise mode because I know I would run around with Seneca Wallace. He was like a 67 rating by like year 3 in franchise mode. I'd have him up to like a 95 and I'd be cooking with gas.
Exactly. You can make that happen.
Exactly right. Let me ask you this, man, because you growing up playing the game and being that invested that you would give feedback. I'm interested. What's your favorite part of the job, and what is your least favorite part of the job?
Favorite part of the job is probably just getting to watch a bunch of film. Like I personally just love that so much. That and getting to talk to coaches and players and getting their take like on other players. Like I love when I get an opportunity to talk to those players. They always want to complain about their rating, and that's fine.
Sure.
You can always, but I always want to try and drive them like, who do you think is underrated in the league? Who do you think is really phenomenal, but I have them too low? And don't get me on your team because that can, I get right. Give me somebody else that you feel is maybe unjustly favored or overrated at the same sense. Like, hey, what, Earl Thomas is too high. Tell me why. Right. And I love being able to get all that kind of feedback because it kind of gives you an inside line, not only from a coach that's evaluating, but players who play against it to kind of give a good eye on like what you're seeing. Does that line up with what you've been seeing? Well, wow, that goes totally against what I thought I was seeing. Maybe I should go back and reevaluate that. And then I would say the worst part of the job is just being probably the most hated man on the team. Whether it be from players or anybody else. It seems like coaches don't seem to hate me too much. Like I got to meet Eric Bieniemy at the Combine, and he was like, don't listen to what any of these players have to say. Who cares? Make them earn it. Screw them. Make them earn it, man. They deserve it. They need to work for this stuff. Like, don't let any of them give you a hard time. You're just doing your job just like they're just doing their job. And I'm like,
I'd be interested to look back at Eric. I'd be interested to go back and look at Eric Bieniemy's ratings back, in the when he was in a video game and see exactly how he felt about it.
All I could do is sit here and tell him that was way before my time. I was a child. If you wanted to come at me, but I don't know. I actually that's a good thing. I probably should have asked him about that. See if he gave a hoot about it back then.
So you talked about you've created relationships with players all around the league, NFL and college. You talked about the meeting with coaches, meeting with guys like Jim Nagy. What are some of the other things that you do to kind of hone your own football acumen? I know like when we talked with Anthony White last summer, he talked about bringing coaches onto campus down there in Orlando and having them spend a lot of time down there and just go through scheme. What are some of the things that you do to kind of boost your own knowledge of the game?
I would say picking the brains of people that I know are smarter than me. There's a lot of guys I'll follow on Twitter. Ted Wynn, Duke for OL Masterminds is phenomenal. He's taught me a ton about offensive line play and a lot of things that I still don't understand. I'm still learning from him. Learning from players how they go about some things. Like I try and take most of my football learning, my football acumen from taking everything you see, everything you follow, applying that to what you see, like when you watch a game, and then it kind of allows you to watch the game from a different perspective. Like Duke loves to say, like eyes on O-line every time he,
right, yep.
And I'll see him post that, and I'll be like, man, I remember watching that play, but I was not watching that aspect of it at all, right? Like, and then you see it, you're like, man. God, he's got a point. Like you keep wanting to just retrain your eyes to look at more than one thing. And I've noticed myself getting better and better about that as I watch games. Like I see, oh, wow, he just crushed that dude on the right side. I don't even care with the quarterbacks anymore. That was just phenomenal. But I can't find myself doing it every play. Like it's a weird thing because I need to watch like all of the players, right? It's impossible to just focus on one area though, because there's so many different things happening on a play. So another great thing that I try and do to boost this is when you watch back film during the week too. It's another thing, like you watch that play and now you've watched it from like 3 different perspectives. You watched it on TV, you watched it from the end zone cam, you watched it on this one, and you're watching different things each time you're watching this play, right? You're watching the wide receiver interaction, you're watching the tight end interaction, you're watching how the center played the twist, like all of these different things. You're like, Holy crap. Yeah, it's just like, how do you watch all of this and catch it the first time? Like, how do you just get that? How do you get better at that at least, right? Because it's impossible to do. So I think that's probably been the biggest thing that I've tried to work on and hone and improve. It's like keeping my eyes open on everything happening in the play as best as you can, within limits.
Do you have a favorite part of the game to study? Do you have a favorite position to kind of grade and evaluate?
I love running backs, but like in a running back non-driven league now that it is, like it's fun to watch how they'll pick a hole and make a decision, and you get to see a lot of running backs like make a play that it doesn't seem like they should be able to see and make a play on. And sometimes you wonder if it's just luck or if it's this, and you try and watch it from as many angles to see, like, did he definitely feel that guy coming or something? Like, I want to say it's just the most entertaining, but due to how that's kind of been devalued lately, I guess I'd go and say quarterback, because there's so many different things you'll see them watching at a play. Not all of them, obviously. Some quarterbacks are just one read guys, but you'll see them like breaking down things before the play, during the play, and then you'll see them move guys, this, that, and it gives you a real like enjoyment and kind of breathtaking sense of like, wow, how were they able to literally take this play that seems relatively simple, maneuver a safety, maneuver a linebacker, make them think they're going somewhere, go somewhere else, and then not only that, drive it with such immense force that these two other guys can't even get their hands on it, and he fires it in this very, very small window. Whereas, you watch college football, it's great and all that, but you don't see them working with nearly the limited amount of space that you see in the NFL.
I'm going to go psychoanalyst here, and I'm going to ask you this question. Do you know of what position group, I should ask, is most active in their seeking of revenge with you? Like, is there one group position group where you're like, man, like these corners will not get off my back, or the receivers are constantly, talking my ear off about how I have them underrated? Is there one position group where you're like, man, like these guys just are relentless in that?
That's a good question. I don't know if I've ever thought about it from a position group standpoint. I guess if I think I'll go DB, and I guess here's what I'll say why. Not only do they all care just about speed, about this, that, the rest, acceleration.
Yep.
Like, everybody always just cares about speed. Obviously, get that. But they care so much about what they look like, thanks to the Deion Sanders era and all that. And I get it. I emulated Deion. I always, like, even in our flag football tournaments, I'm swagged up. I have I have the look. Everybody knows that I come out there, I'm going to look better than anybody else on the field. Like, I may not play as well, but I'm going to look best. So at the combine this year, every single one of them, because I had my laptop there, every single one of them wanted to make sure that they had their gear laid out perfect for the upcoming year. And I'm like, what are you going to wear? I'm going to have a shooter sleeve here, the blue Vapor Jets. Yeah, I've got the F7 robot. Yeah, I've got that, the clear visor. Yeah, and I'm going to have the Vapor Untouchable lows, the this, the that. Everybody, they head to toe, they knew exactly what they were going to wear once they got in the league. I was like, okay, props to it. I love it. Like, this is the coolest thing in the world. As a guy who's a gearhead, like that's really cool. But they're ones that are definitely going to stay on you all the time, whether it be about ratings, what they look like. I've seen Jamal Adams tweet about, where are my forearm bands? Y'all need to get this in the game. Y'all need to get my look right. This, that. They seem to care the most about everything, not even just ratings, but everything beyond.
There's a reason why I said them first. I had a feeling that was the group. And my guess would be, if I had to guess, I would say the group on the other side of the coin, probably quarterback, but if not outside of quarterback, maybe linebacker would be my guess as to who is like which position group is least likely to talk your ear off.
I'd say DTs.
DTs, okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think they just feel like they don't get enough credit in the first place.
Right. Yep.
They just, unless it's like some superstar DT, maybe.
Sure.
I've seen Snacks kind of talk smack from time to time.
Right. Yep.
That's about it. I've never really, outside of him, that's really it.
All right, so let's get to the turkey here, where I know a lot of Eagles fans really want to hear. Peel back the curtain a little bit for a preview of what some of these Eagles players are going to look like here this fall. Is there anything where you would think of off the top of your head? You're like, well, Eagles fans are going to be happy to hear this. Here's your chance to get out in front of it.
Let's see. I mean, let's say we want to talk rookies for Eagles. I mean, I think everybody gets stoked. They draft all these wide receivers. That was a big area of concern for them last year. Let's say they should feel a lot happier coming into this year with the wide receivers they had than last year. I can say that. I can say Rager's not slow. Okay. I can say you're bringing Marquise Goodwin onto the team, not slow in the slightest. Although has some hands issues. We'll see. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's bad. Maybe they improve with over here in Philly. I don't know. I know that they started exclusively using him as a gunner in Philly or in San Francisco. I don't know why. I personally am a huge fan of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, jump ball machine. Been big on him, since I watched his tape last year. I realized it didn't come together, maybe to the point he would like last year. Maybe this year's the year.
Okay.
I like Hightower a lot. I know he doesn't currently fit necessarily on the depth chart as a wide receiver, but good special teamer. I think he can develop into a wide receiver. Kind of has that Cedric Wilson vibe, kind of just picking him late, right? And then putting him on special teams, letting him develop into a wide receiver. So I like your chances there. And then I want to say you guys drafted another wide receiver.
You got Quez Watkins.
There we go. And I like Quez too. I really do. I think he could definitely do something for them. I mean, he's not the most exciting player, but you don't have to be good. Like, we've seen that proven. Now, the big thing for me, though, and I think for everybody else is and I got to meet him last year at Masterminds. We were a big fan of him, and seeing him go down is going to hurt big time. But losing Brandon Brooks is not going to be a fun beast to play with this year. Luckily, it's still a game, though. You can take him off and sub him back in as if it never happened. Luckily, the world of video games gives you that creativity. But if you're a simulation player like me and you've got to make do with the way the real world is, maybe they re-sign Peters, play him there. Maybe you got to deal with Matt Fryer. Maybe they try Miletta guard or something.
Sure.
Who knows? That part scares me because I know you don't want to see Hurts on the not Hurts. You don't want to see Wentz or Hurts on the run this year from the offensive line. So hopefully, that comes together because I like their chances if Wentz doesn't have to run around all day. Not that he can't do it.
Yep. So with the ratings being released here this week or coming up here, is there one guy? All right, let me ask you this question. I'll put it this way: give me a yes or no. If Eagles fans are going to be excited or are they going to be barking down your door on Carson Wentz? Yes, they'll be excited, or no, they're going to be chewing up your DMs.
I think the realistic Eagles fans will like Wentz.
Okay.
I think that the Eagles fans that most of us are accustomed to, just the rabid Eagles are the best Eagles, they probably wouldn't be happy with it. They probably feel they should be at 90 or something. But we all got to be honest with ourselves,
That's right. How about Miles Sanders? I know you enjoy the running back position a lot.
I like Miles. Miles, he's done enough this past season to be called good. I think the only issue that he's just waiting for, at least he hasn't shown yet. He hasn't done anything spectacular. He's just done everything well. Doesn't bode that well in the overall formula, but he's going to be really good in game.
Sure.
It's not going to be a bad overall, but I'm just to quell that a little bit. If he does what he did last year, though, he'll find a way to go up. He's a good player.
So my last thing for you is this, and then we're going to let you out, Dustin. You've got one final plea or one final chance to kind of put your petition out to Eagles fans, or really fans of all teams that are listening. As the game comes out and people get their ratings and they get to enjoy the game for the first time, any kind of final closing words for you on the way out?
Well, don't hate me too much. I'm doing my best. I'm trying to be as fair and honest and even to all teams, not just the Eagles, all teams. Don't hate me too much, but there's no way you're going to like every rating. It's just impossible. There's no way. All I can say is all they have to do is play well, and they immediately go up in our game. If you feel it's not happening, always reach out to me on Twitter. Tell me what rating needs to go up. I'll always listen. I read all of my notifications, equipment_guru. I'll read it all. even the hate mail. Just keep it clean. Just keep it clean, and I'll read it all.
Well, Dustin, really, really appreciate the time here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade. Stay safe, stay healthy. Excited to get my hands on the game coming up here in the next couple weeks.
Thank you for having me.
Great stuff there from Dustin, who you can follow on Twitter just like I do, at equipment_guru. And while you're at it, I'm at EaglesXOs. That's where I post all the podcasts I'm a part of and all of our X's and O's content that we produce at PhiladelphiaEagles.com. And you know how much I appreciate everybody that promotes this podcast on all forms of social media. That's one way to support the show. But the other way is to go on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, give us a rating and leave us a comment. Look, we're getting close now to what's hopefully the start of the 2020 season. Hopefully training camp just around the corner. Obviously, still so much that's unknown about what's going on with the football season, both NFL, college, high school, and so on, with everything going on around the country. But the best way to throw us your support as we get closer and closer to the start of hopefully football season. Best way is to go into Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, leave us a rating, leave us a comment. If you ask a question, we'll answer it right here on the show. Thanks so much to Dustin, all of you out there, for your continued support of this show and all the rest of our podcast offerings on PhiladelphiaEagles.com. All that being said, I think that'll do it. Another show in the books here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade. For everybody here at the Duffy House, I'm Fran Duffy. We will talk to you next week.